Your expressions and equations test is going to be 45 points. There are 45 points of 28 questions. So there are 28 questions, but it's worth 45 points. That means that you have some questions that are worth 2 points and some questions that are worth 1 point. The 1 point questions are going to be numbers 1 through 3, which is multiple choice, asking you whether something is an expression or an equation, and numbers 21 through 28, which are vocabulary matching. So those are all the 1 point questions. The remainder of the questions are going to be worth 2 points, and those are going to be the ones that you are solving equations. So that would be pretty much numbers 4 through 20. If you were to add all of those up, you would notice that it would be 45 points, even though there are 28 questions, not points, 28 questions.
Is each vocab word 1 point?
Yes. Having said that, the first part is where it's asking you to identify if something is an expression or an equation. Remember that an expression does not have an equal sign. So if I was to ask you, of these three, let's call them A, B, and C, which ones are expressions and which ones are equations, who would be the expressions? The expressions. A and C. And the reason is because A is just 7x and there's no equal sign, and C is 9x minus 2 plus 8x. It's a complex expression, but it's not an equation. So expressions would be A and C, and B would be an equation because there is an equal sign. Part 2 is going to be all of numbers 4 through 20, which are solving equations. Okay, 1 second. These are the ones that are going to be worth 2 points. And as you can imagine, the 2 points are, 1 point is that the answer is correct, and the other point is that you showed your work. So if you showed your work and you did not get it correct because you made one silly mistake, at least you get half of the points. But if you get the right answer and you don't show your work, you only get 1 out of the 2 points. Let me give you some examples and how I expect you to be able to do this. So 4 through 20 is solving equations and simplifying expressions. So I kind of overlooked that. It's both simplifying expressions and solving equations. If I was to give you something that looked like this, this is called an expression because there's no equal sign. With expressions, you simplify them. The first thing that you have to do is go inside the parentheses and notice that you can combine 7x and 3x, and that gives you 10x. And 10x times 5, because of the commutative property, you are allowed to do 5 times 10 and then times x, which would give you the answer of 50x. And that's your answer. It's not an equation, so you don't get x equals something, you just get the expression. Let's try another one. Again, this is also an expression. And with expressions, I simplify them. Order of operations says you work on inside parentheses first. And 22x minus 2x is 20x, plus 30x is 50x. It just so happens that we got the same answer, different things. There are other types of expressions, such as this. In this expression, you will notice that you are adding 7y minus 2 and 3y plus 8. The fact that there is an addition sign in the middle means that you're not changing the sign of the parentheses that it is in front of. So theoretically, if you wanted to, you could write it like this: 7y minus 2 plus 3y plus 8, and then you can combine like terms. 7y plus 3y is 10y. And negative 2, remember, you always take the sign in front. Don't just make it a 2. It's negative 2. What is negative 2 plus 8? Positive 6. So you write plus 6. And your answer is 10y plus 6. Awesome. This problem is a little different than the one where there's distributing in front of. So, for example, if I was to have 3x plus 5 plus 8 parentheses x plus 9, in this example, again, it's an expression.
That would be 8x and 7.
Excellent. You take that 8, because it's in front of the parentheses, symbolizing you're multiplying 8 to x and 9. And order of operations says you have to multiply before you add or subtract. So we are adding here and adding here, but multiplying between 8 and the parentheses. So you need to multiply that first. So you can rewrite everything else, and then you multiply 8 times x, and that's 8x, and 8 times 9, and that gives you 72. With this, the next step is to simplify. 3x plus 8x is 11x.
And then you have to add 5 plus 72.
Very good. And 77.
77.
Excellent. So you also combine like terms, because that's all you could do is simplify. You can't really do anything else. Awesome. So those are all the simplify expression ones. They're worth 2 points. Obviously, you show your work, and that's 1 point, and then the answer is the other. The third part would be solving equations, or let's keep it under part 2 because it's all under the same ones. If I was to give you something like 7x is equal to 21, what would I do? Nice. You would notice that x is being multiplied by 7, so you divide by 7. This is how I would like to see your work, just to see that you are understanding the idea of undoing what's being done. And when you divide that, you get x is equal to 3, because 7 divided by 7 is 1, and then 21 divided by 7 is 3. That's the work, that's the answer. That's 2 points right there. That is a one-step equation. A two-step equation would be one that has both addition or subtraction and multiplying and dividing. So, for example, if I said to you, solve, and I gave you 5x minus 3 is equal to 12. This is an equation because there's an equal sign. I'm solving. What would be the very first thing, besides maybe separating both sides of the equal sign, that you would do?
You would add 3.
Good. Remember that you always work backwards with order of operations. Order of operations says parentheses, exponents, multiply, divide, add, subtract. So you go backwards. If you knew what x was, you would multiply by 5 and then minus 3. So in order to undo that, you're going to add 3 first. Always get rid of that floating number first, that constant. And you get 5x, because the 3's canceled out, is equal to 15. And now? And now you divide by 5 on both sides, and you get x is equal to 3. So that's the work, and that's the answer.
It would be 35 minus x equals 35.
So how do I solve?
Okay, you have 5 plus 3.
Yeah, you add 5, and remember, it's okay for you to use your logic. If you know 35 minus 5 is 30, then you know x is 35. But I still need to see your steps, because as we get more and more complex, if you don't know the steps, you'll not know where to begin. So I know it's 35 is equal to x, and that's my answer. Okay, let's look at the second one, which is the one up here with the 4. What is being done to x right now?
Being divided by 5.
How do I undo that?
You do 5 times 4.
Nice. X is being divided by 5, so to solve, I am going to multiply by 5 on both sides. When I do that, I get x alone, and x is 5 times 4, which is 20. All right, the 7x one. What is the first thing that I need to do to the 7x minus 2?
You do 7 times 2.
You add 2.
26.
You add 2 to the 26, and you get 7x is equal to 28, and then I divide by 7, and I get x equals 4.
Oh, no.
Very good. The first thing you do is you unadd, so you minus.
And then the 3 would cancel out.
Yep,
And then on the other side you get 15.
good.
And then 3x equals 15.
Yep,
And then you would divide 15 divided by 3.
very good. So then the 3x equals 15, you divide by 3, and you get
5.
x equals 5. All right. Okay, fractions. Oh no. What is a fraction really?
It's 2 numbers
They're being divided, exactly. It's division. So if I was to read this, I would say x divided by 5 plus 4. The plus 4 is the last thing I do. Great. So let's separate both sides if we want. We subtract 4, very nice.
And then you subtract 4 on the other side.
Yep.
So then it's 7. So then you get 3.
You get 3 on the right, and you get
And then you bring over x over 5.
x divided by 5.
Divided by 5. And then you multiply by 5.
Good. Now you're going to multiply by 5, because by multiplying by 5, you undo that division.
And then you do 3 times 5, which is 15.
Excellent. X equals 15. Good. So in a question such as this one, where we may not have in our head the understanding yet or acceptance that that's a division problem, we may look at this and get confused. But if you know the steps to follow, you kind of catch yourself. Great. All right, the last one. Well, the last one has multiplication in parentheses, so you have to distribute, correct? So this is a 3-step equation. So you would distribute, and you get 5y plus 5 is equal to 25. Now it's a simple 2-step equation. What would I do?
Minus 5 by 20.
Nice. So minus 5 minus 5. 20 equals 5. Yep. And then you would, great, divide by 5, and you get y equals 4. Excellent. So those are all the types of questions that you're going to have with solving equations and simplifying expressions. If you can do each of these, you will be able to do each of the types of questions that you're going to have on the test. The last part of the test is going to be the vocabulary. And the vocabulary is simply just matching. So the vocab is going to be numbers 21 through 28. So that means that there's 8 vocabulary words. It's going to be multiple choice, where I'm going to give you a list of the vocab and then the definition with the blank, and you get to choose the correct vocab. The vocabulary that you are expected to know: equation, the first, the next word, expression, coefficients, inverse operations, constant, variable, terms, and like terms. An equation, just so that you can remember what it is, 7x minus 4 equals 10. That is an equation. An expression is
Can someone stop running their cereal, please?
That's me. Sorry that it's disturbing your sleep pattern. So this would be something like 7x plus 5 plus 3x minus 2. Coefficients are
An example always was the
So in the example right here, 7x plus 5 plus 3x minus 2, who are the coefficients? The coefficients are 7 and 3. Remember, a coefficient is the number in front. So the coefficient would be 7 and 3. Right? Inverse operations are the operations that undo another. So, for example, the inverse of addition is subtraction. The inverse of multiplication is division. So these are the operations that undo each other. So if I was to ask you 7x minus 4 equals 10, when I add 4 to both sides, that is using the inverse operation. A constant, unlike a coefficient, a constant is a number with no variable. And if we look at the example above, if we look at the equations or the expressions, the constants are 5 and what's the other constant in this? -2. Remember, you always take the sign in front. So in this expression, the constants are 5 and -2. 5 and -2. A variable is a letter that is symbolic of an unknown quantity. So it's an unknown quantity. Symbolized as a letter. So up above, the x's would be the variables. Terms are the total items in an expression separated by addition and subtraction. So if I look at the expression up here, how many terms are there before I simplify? How many terms are in this expression up here before I simplify? 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. In the above expression, there are 4 terms. And like terms, like terms are terms being multiplied by the same variable, very nice, and they can be combined. So what are the like terms up there?
7x and 3x.
Very good. So 7x and 3x and what else? 5 and negative 2. Very good. Remember, constants are like terms with each other. So, this is the entire summative on Monday.